Good evening. I'd like to call to order the Petaluma Public Art Committee meeting for Thursday, September 28th. We'll begin with the oath of office for our newly appointed member, Jenny Bellway. Welcome.
Hi, Jenny. If you could please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name, do solemnly swear
I, Jenny Bellway, do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the United States,
the Charter of the City of Petaluma,
the Charter of the City of Petaluma,
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States,
to the Constitution of the United States,
the Charter of the City of Petaluma,
the Charter of the City of Petaluma,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully
and that I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
Thank you and welcome.
Thank you, Jenny. Uriel, could you please do roll call? Thank you.
Committee Member Coldiron,
Here.
Committee Member Mooring,
Here.
Committee Member Smith,
Here.
Committee Member Diggs, absent, Committee Member Rizzo Simmons, absent, Committee Member Bellway,
Here.
Chair Abercrombie.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Today, we acknowledge that our City of Petaluma Committee work involves the unceded lands that is the ancestral homelands of the Coast Miwok people. We would like to express our gratitude and appreciation to those who stewarded and continue to steward this land. We pay our respects to the past, present, and emerging leaders and citizens of the community of the Coastal Miwok. Here. We will now open general public comment if any members of the public would like to comment on any items not on today's agenda. There are no hands raised, so I will shut public comment, and we will begin our presentations with meeting item number 1, the home stretch conservation.
Yeah, thank you. Tonight, I wanted to bring forward the final treatment report for the home stretch conservation project. And as a reminder to those who weren't aware, that maybe in the public, that there was a motor vehicle accident earlier in this calendar year on Lakeville and Freitas, and that involved a car hitting public artwork entitled Home Stretch by Donna Billick, which is permanently displayed there on the southeast corner of the intersection. The city contracted with Preservation Arts out of Oakland, California, who are a licensed and professional arts conservation company that the city has worked with in the past to conserve the Robert Ellison work, Cherry Soda, near the movie theater on C Street. The work took about 4 weeks to complete, which started in late August and was completed, I believe, last week. And the report included in tonight's packet shows the scope of work, the treatment, the approach, the process, and the final outcome. So I don't have an actual physical or visual presentation for you tonight, but I did want to make sure that I added this into the agenda to mark that this project is complete and include the report for the committee to review. So I don't have much else on this item unless there are committee questions or anybody from the public that has questions about how this project went and the outcome. So I'll turn it back over to you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Would anybody like to ask David questions or comments about the project completion? Okay, I will now open, Christopher, yes, please.
Yeah, David, what was the final cost on the restoration?
It's a great question. We are still calculating that because we actually ended up amending the scope of work kind of at the last minute. There is no water source that we were able to tap into for Preservation Arts to work with. So the maintenance also, for them to complete the work on the top portion of the artwork, they were going to do a deep cleaning process that they needed a water source. And unless they were going to truck in water on their own, it wasn't really an option. So the initial estimate that they provided us was around $37,000. And I believe that number is going to be reduced because we did amend the scope. So I'm crunching those numbers right now with the Preservation Arts contracting team. And I will have, when we look at the next budget report, I should have a harder number for you on that of what the outcome was.
Thank you. Yeah, I do think it would be instructive for the members of the committee to be, take in each of these case studies as we can to just get more educated on the cost of things like that. Yes, sure. We look forward to seeing it. And then in a related matter, what has become of your discussions with Public Works about doing regular cleaning of public art?
There hasn't been too much more development about a regular schedule. It's more as an as needed basis. So we can schedule that at any time. We just need to identify. I think we're due for a survey of prioritizing which artworks are in need of cleaning and what that level of service is, and then they can help us understand what resources and staff will be required for that.
Thanks.
Thank you, Christopher. Are there any additional comments or questions? And just for clarification for committee members, these funds will be reimbursed through insurance. So, well, it sounds kind of so far like we're paying it. It's actually, we're going to be paid by the insurance company.
Yeah, and if I could just add to that too, the city carries fine art insurance for these things, and then we're also working with the motorist vehicle insurance as well. So between the two, any funds that we're using, any funds that we're using right now to pay for the work to be done, we're anticipating reimbursement.
Thank you, David. Christopher?
Yeah, and I did raise this last time, and maybe it's just I didn't get the answer I wanted, so I'm asking it again.
Okay.
But I'd love to see, it's an unfortunate position for a public art fund to have an accident happen and have its fund depleted as a result of that. And in this case, your time, staff time, comes out of the public art fund necessarily. So I would hope that you can make an inquiry with the city to be able to say, can a line item be entered on the claim for staff time?
That is an excellent point, and I think that it opens up a broader discussion too, because roughly 10% of the public art fund annually is designated for maintenance, which would include staff time for maintenance. However, to your point, I think there's a broader discussion about, the public art fund relies on cost recovery, development fees to replenish that public art fund. And as we've noticed through the pandemic and other, unforeseen circumstances when there's economic downturn, there needs to be a broader discussion about we have an obligation and a duty to take care of public art pieces and assets in this city. And if we don't have the funds there, because development is down, then I think that we're in hot water. And so I think that there really needs to be a mechanism that guarantees that public art is cared for properly and timely as well. So you bring up a really great point, and I would really love to explore that deeper with, the authorities in the city and representatives that could help make that happen.
Thank you. I will now open comment to the public. If anybody from the public would like to comment on this item. And there is none. So we'll close public comment and we will move on to item 2, which is the approval of minutes from our last meeting, August 24th. Would anybody have any discussion about needing to edit the minutes? Okay. We will now close this item and move on to item number 3, public hearings and matters for consideration, Amy's Kitchen, Downtown Corporate Office Public Art. Thank you.
Thanks. So the committee is looking at the Amy's Kitchen Downtown Corporate Office project, the public art component at 109 Kentucky Street, at the project site. So this is the same item that was at August's Public Art Committee meeting. However, the key difference here is that August meeting was a study session that was designed to present the public art proposal and provide non-binding feedback to the applicant team to aid and help them meet the Chapter 18 requirements that this project must satisfy. So since the August 24th Public Art Committee meeting, the applicant team has considered the feedback provided by the committee and staff as analyzed in the staff report. And from this item's discussion, the updated proposal, which was included in tonight's packet under this item for the committee to review, has analyzed this updated proposal. We also are joined by Daphne and Gary from the Amy's team to address any remaining questions or comments that the committee or public might have about the proposal. But before we do that, I would like to point out one key change that was included in the staff report and the other attachments, which is the temporary certificate of occupancy, or TCO. The applicant, I'm going to read this here, but I'll explain. The applicant has requested and has been granted a TCO from the city staff to continue forward with scheduled work and plans for the downtown corporate office site and move forward with that as approved. And as in anticipation of recommended approval tonight for this item, we've granted that TCO for the applicant team to deposit 1% of the building valuation funds that are required for this public art requirement, as stated in Chapter 18 of the city's IZO, to hold for a duration of time necessary to certify all expenses, contracts, budgets, stipends, and other payments equivalent to the $52,200 public art amount to execute their public art rotating program as presented and approved, and hopefully approved. The details of that public art deposit were included in Attachment C of this item. This is an important procedural element just because it ensures that the value of the public art requirement is met, and as it's conditioned in the site plan and architectural review, or SPAR process, and the value remains committed to and reserved for the sole purpose of public art. So that's what that mechanism is, and I can help explain that more if you'd like, but it's described in the bottom of the staff report as well. But happy to answer any questions and about the changes to the staff report. We also have Gary and Daphne here, but I'll turn it back over to you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome back. It's nice to see you both. I would like to open it to any committee member questions or comments to David or the applicants. It's fairly similar to what we saw last time, so it's not any big surprises or changes. So if there was any comments at this time, this is your opportunity. Okay. I have a couple of questions. I just wanted to know when you anticipate starting the program? Yes, please. Thank you.
Having us. We are starting the program as soon as approval begins. So it could go up as early as tomorrow.
Wonderful, thank you. And I noticed that you had added some stenciling, kind of painting. It's not stenciling, it looks like it's freehand painting inside the entranceways, and it looks really beautiful. And I would like to encourage you guys to use those big spaces like that, because it's just so much more inviting, you know, and it just feels
Absolutely.
like a breath of fresh air to see that. I just wanted to reinforce also that in your selection of artists, just if you can keep it as off your branding as you can, so it feels separate, that would be like my one concern, is just that. And I think you can handle that really well with our I think we had more of a collective voice on that last time. And so, I'm really excited to see what you do with the space, and it looks gorgeous. So thank you.
Thank you. And yes, we definitely have the same mindset too, as far as art goes, and adding more as we continue to settle into our new home.
Excellent. And we also encourage you to use, since you have such a great building, like if you do want to do projects using the whole building, I think it'd just be wonderful to see that. Yeah,
Absolutely.
thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Are there any other questions or comments?
I'll just mention that I went down last weekend specifically to walk around and kind of, remind myself what the niches really looked like, and they were painting when I was down there. So, yeah, everything looks great. So, it's exciting.
Great, thank you.
Christopher?
Yeah, I appreciate you, after some comments last month, putting in the commitment to carrying on the program as a sort of a corporate program after this. And I think that's as much as we can possibly do now. And I think and I'm really optimistic it's going to take a great shape for years to come. So that's encouraging. This was one of those opportunities to sort of evaluate a unique project against a sort of a static and now dated ordinance. And I think we found, in my view, that the ordinance was suggesting a sense of permanence, which this project does not create. So while I think the resolution is appropriate, and in this case, I'll say it meets it. I'd for our group suggest that when the ordinance is rewritten, that there is some sort of a push toward expressing permanence when public art is on private property, that it becomes a permanent part of the public art collection. I think I said that right. And or at least it's a strong recommendation to do so, something along those lines. So there's more clarity for both sides next time. But for now, well done. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. If there's no additional comments, I invite you to sit down and relax. You did your job. Are there any, I would now like to open public comment. If anybody from the public who is present that I'm not seeing in the room would like to comment, please step forward. Seeing as there's nobody here that would comment on this item, we will close public comment. And now we will move on.
We do have to take this is an action item, so we
thank
do the recommendation is to approve as presented in their proposal. So you would have to you'd have to have a majority vote from tonight's quorum. So out of 6, we need 4 votes yes, or if not approving, 4 votes no.
Okay. I'd like to make the recommendation that the City of Petaluma Public Art Committee approves the Amy's Kitchen Downtown Corporate Office Public Art Proposal, certifying that the proposal satisfies the requirements of Section 18120. Would anybody like to second that item? Cheryl? Okay. Or should we do a roll call vote?
Unless there's any other comments before we take a vote.
Okay.
Yeah, Muriel, when you're ready.
Committee Member Coldiron,
Yes.
Committee Member Mooring,
Yes.
Committee Member Smith,
Yes.
Committee Member Diggs absent, Committee Member Rizzo Simmons absent, Committee Member Belway,
Yes.
Chair Abercrombie,
Yes.
motion carried.
Okay.
Great. Well, congratulations, on your public art requirement satisfaction.
Love boxes for you. Can we just leave them here for you?
I'm not sure if we can accept those. I don't really know how that goes.
There's like a price max, which I don't exactly remember.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just because
I understand. Okay.
Yeah, I appreciate the
so much.
gesture
the thought,
so much.
that is incredible.
Definitely. Yeah, so we're doing an open house event tomorrow at our office from 3 to 5, and we welcome you to join. Bring your families and friends and stop by, and you can tour the space and see the art yourself.
Thank you. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, you guys.
We will now open item 4, Small Arts Commission 2023-2024.
All right. At the request of Chair Abercrombie, this Small Artwork Commission 2324 item is on the agenda tonight for discussion. There is no action required for this item. Last time the committee reviewed this was February or March of this year, and I've consolidated a list of the locations that the committee and other bodies have identified as locations that could potentially be great for commissioned public art. And then also the reduced list that this committee looked at and prioritized certain locations. Some of the sites on that list, including the traffic circle at Sonoma Mountain Parkway in Corona, the Senior Center, Wiseman Park, and Oak Hill Park. The last two may not be on that list, but anyway, the point remains the same that some of those sites have been selected since then for the Mary Fuller McChesney pieces, but I'm happy to show that list if it helps facilitate tonight's conversation. I also wanted to update the group about this item too, that I reached out to Caltrans project manager for the Sonoma County region that would be regarding the pedestrian bridge over Highway 101 from the East Washington Target Shopping Center over the freeway to, I believe those streets are Mackenzie and Stewart on the east side. And I'm waiting to hear back from them, but I'm bringing that up because that was flagged as a site of interest from the committee, that we would love to activate that space as a gateway to Petaluma, to people who work in Petaluma, visit, live here. And there's so many opportunities with two-dimensional art, three-dimensional art, light art, any kind of things like that. So waiting to hear back from them because Caltrans would be a pivotal player in getting the approvals and the parameters of how we can activate that space and that overcross. So unfortunately, I don't have any other updates on that, but just a quick summary elevator pitch about, for those who aren't aware of what the Small Artwork Commission program is. This has been a successful program that has generated a few artworks over the years for the public art program here in the city, including Making Progress by Rough Edge Collective, which is the mural at the Swim Center. The first phase of Abstractions by Ryan Peterson, which is on the Keller Street Garage and Telephone Alley. And the sculpture that's planned for the Kenilworth Junior High site, which is Woven Stories by Calderon Delgado. So in the past, the Public Art Committee has voiced support for making this commission program a recurring opportunity for professional artists and emerging artists to bring original compositions to public areas throughout Petaluma. And using a $25,000 award budget, this and an expected project completion within 12 months of contracting, this program really aims to be a nimble approach to bringing quality art and life into identified public spaces and neighborhoods throughout Petaluma. So with that introduction, I'm going to hand it back over to you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, David. The reason I wanted to bring this back up to the table is we have new members, and I think this is a great kind of opportunity to bring you in and help in the process. And I wanted to get a sense in this conversation about what a timeline looks like with everybody, if this is something you'd like to start off soon or in the new year, because we can start getting that moving forward. And I was also hoping that we could maybe have a discussion about what our top three choices are, so that when we have a call for submission and artists, that we have the sites clearly identified. During those other processes where we talked about the mural at the Swim Center and the piece for the Kenilworth Junior High, the site selection was really challenging because we chose our artists first and our site second. And it was a unique opportunity because we could kind of, then have a unique project onto the site. But we also found that it took a lot of time, a lot of volunteer efforts. But we, through the process, identified a lot of sites for future projects. Like the fire stations on the east side are going to be going through renovation. So at some point, the fire chief has asserted that he will make sure that the walls are fit for murals when the time comes. So kind of those things came out of it, which will be ultimately fruitful. But now, hindsight's 2020, let's pick some sites, and it'll make it a more streamlined process, and we can be more site-specific. So if David would like to pull up those sites, I think it'd be nice to introduce them to the newer members and have a conversation. It doesn't have to be a long one, but I thought to accomplish something with our time being here, it would be nice to move this forward. Christopher?
David and/or Chair Abercrombie, would you be able to describe the process you envision for this next round? Because I think I had an idea that site would be what we'd go forward with. That would make it the most nimble project, singular. You've suggested sites, so I'm wondering where in the process we'd edit and how many we'd edit it down to.
You mind if I go first?
Yes, please.
I completely agree that site selection is really key here. I think that will streamline this process quite a bit, and it will, like we've experienced with working with a variety of different artists over the years, when we give artists a canvas, they can respond a little bit more, they could respond more succinctly and provide something that is much more tangible than kind of a more conceptual project. And I think that will help us use our time, our money, and our process a little bit more effectively. So in my experience working with City of Santa Rosa, for example, having the site parameters of saying we're looking, I don't think we need to necessarily limit the medium or say it has to be 2D or 3D. I mean, we can definitely look at that, but I think the site should dictate that a little bit more. And so if we're looking at a specific wall, it's not saying we don't accept 3D art, because I think 3D can be creatively respond to a wall, right? And you can have fixtures coming out and popping out, but I think that will help the call to the right artist to say, that's my opportunity, and I have 600 square feet or something like that to work with, or it could be a corner that is vacant, and so we'll attract more three-dimensional sculpture artists or something along the lines to do more of an installation. But I think that would help quite a bit. So those are my thoughts.
And my thoughts in saying multiples, potentially it was only that if the Caltrans one fell through, we had a backup, kind of in our thinking, because that's a little more complicated. And I think in our previous conversation, that one kind of rose to the top. And so we have an idea of what our other members who are not present today felt about the sites from our conversation then. So I felt like it was an okay time to maybe suggest 2, just in the occurrence that when it's just not available to us, the parameters would be too tight, or we wouldn't get the kind of opportunity we want. But in our previous conversation, we talked about wanting to do a space that is not, maybe, I don't want to say blighted per se, but really something that would be overwhelmingly enhanced by the addition of art. And so that was like really a leading thought in selecting the site. Like a lot of times we're looking at a public investment or a private investment in an area nearby, and we think, oh, this is the time to augment that. But in this situation, really what kept coming up is how do we keep connectivity, and how do we enhance space that doesn't have art near it or doesn't feel artful on its own. So that was where that conversation led. So at this point, I think it would be helpful to have David pull up the sites. And I'm not sure how long you both have lived here, but if a site doesn't feel familiar, we're happy to describe it, or, I think most of them have photos, so it might make sense.
So the lists that we're looking at on the screens right now are, when we look at these sources, these are originally where I took some time to visit other commissions and committees to see where other bodies were thinking could benefit from public art. Public art has hundreds of studies that show that it brings so many benefits to lifestyle and to safety and to improving quality of life. So I think when we invite other people to the table to talk about what that is, it really helps us see a lot of opportunities. So I think some of these locations are a little bit more specific than others, but as specific, I would encourage the committee to be as specific as possible. If we could identify a plot, a wall, a corner, that would be helpful than just a general vicinity. But I'll quickly scroll through these ones, and Chair, please chime in if you wanted to make any comments about these. But like I said, the senior center is, we're looking at that for Mary Fuller McChesney Works right now, not to say it's off limits.
And also some of these are suggestions from
Yes.
outside committees and commissions, like the Parks Commission or different entities that David's run it by in support of the Public Art Committee.
There is also one that's not on this list. I don't think that this body has talked about, which is the Kenilworth Teen Center. And I know there's support for that. And I know there's support from Parks and Recreation about that site as well. However, with the renovation of the park itself, I would maybe encourage waiting to see what the final design outcome looks like, so the artwork can, really speak, and resonate kind of the design elements and respond to an updated park. But the Kenilworth Teen Center was identified as a place that really needs a little bit of help, and maybe public art could be that catalyst.
I also wanted to clarify that space number 10 with the traffic circle at Eli and Casa, those are also under consideration for a Mary Fuller McChesney sculpture. So we're not sure. We know which sculpture we think would work in a traffic circle. We just aren't sure where it's most feasible. So, and we wanted it orientated towards Sonoma Mountain where Mary lived. So that's our objective there. Would anybody have any questions about the spaces? Are there any you're unfamiliar with? And we can give you some time to look also, so it doesn't feel overwhelming. So the C Street Market Park is where Adobe Road Winery is being built. And so that site runs the same kind of, there's one at G and one at H. And the one at H is where we're going to be placing Fine Balance, just to let you know what's going on in that area. And Adobe Creek will have a piece that they are making for their project at their site. So we'll have like a deconstructed wine bottle there nearby. So just to give you a sense of what the future holds. And when you're ready, I guess we can begin the conversation about what sites you're feeling should be activated by our investment.
I also wanted to make sure that everybody knew that this isn't, if anybody wants to suggest new areas, this is not the short list that you have, there's no obligation, right? These were just narrowed down from a larger list of suggestions. And like I said, some of these sites were identified as great places for the Mary Fuller McChesney sculptures and other opportunities as well. So just wanted to make sure everybody knew they weren't limited to suggesting new sites either.
Yes, please.
Can someone kind of just narrow down the location of the Golden Concourse walls? And
Yes.
what's going on there?
Would you like to do that?
Sure. Do you want me to pull up Google
Yeah, I
Maps
think-
or something?
Yeah, I
It
think
might be the
that'd be
easiest way to do this. So the Golden Concourse is not a term I really knew about in all the years I lived in Petaluma, but it's the alleyway that runs from the Keller Street Garage through going kind of horizontally and then past Copperfields and down to Helen Putnam Plaza. I'll drop us on Google Maps, I think.
They're currently restoring a wall that's opposite Round Table if you're walking towards the parking garage, if that helps give you a sense of space.
I got kind of close, but I'll get us there.
Just going on a walk.
Yeah. But just so everybody knows that the right of way itself, where the pedestrian way is public property. However, the buildings themselves are private property. So it's not to say it's impossible to do public art there. It's just is another layer of jurisdiction, I guess you can call it, to make sure that everybody's understands what goes into those spaces. So we're standing on Kentucky Street, and this is one of the walls of the Golden Concourse right there. I think that's a Round Table Pizza now. And this is the image I included, which takes you down to Helen Putnam Plaza, which is where Speakeasy is, and Starbucks is there, and across the street is Angela's Ice Cream by Lala's.
And in our conversation, we brought up the potential of the stair usage, like if we wanted to have an artist do something on the stairs, or there's a lot of options there. Obviously, they took a creative approach with the lighting where it feels more bespoke to the site than the other lighting downtown. So, it's a really interesting spot. But it might sound like it's kind of like there's no room to do anything when you first look at it. So in our discussion, that was part of it. Yes, please.
I actually somehow did know it was called that. It has so much potential to have things done. Like this is stairs. I've walked down there so many times, thought, this would be a perfect place for something to happen here. It's very just blah, and it's really, really heavily walked through. So it seems like a very opportune place. I mean, I've been here 7 years, and I know where all those places are. I do live on the east side, and I have 3 boys, so most of my time has been spent at the 2 baseball places and the community center. And they all definitely don't have anything that's attractive about them. Like those 3 places have nothing that stands out as engaging youth with art or anybody. It's just, the whole east side doesn't have a lot of art, obviously, but these are so many potential spots. This is exciting to think about.
And just to let you know, in case you aren't familiar with our pipeline projects, like we have worked really hard to try to find mural sites that are on public buildings on the east side. That's why those fire stations are really important, because we could not find publicly owned spaces for that type of art. We are placing art in Wiseman Park and at Kenilworth Junior High. So soon there will be more of an investment on the east side. We're working on that, and that's been a big priority to us. And so just to let you know, and Christopher, you had shown us the site at I forget the name of it, Murphy Ballpark, or what is it called? The one that's near Safeway?
Oh, Murphy's Park.
Yeah, that there's like a triangle of space there that could facilitate a sculpture or something. Like if you haven't been to the sites, they do have some real opportunity, and it's also super visible. It's on a street corner, and we aren't having to be tied to a theme that's baseball necessarily. We have some real opportunity there where youth will see it. Yes, Jenny?
Yeah, that particular Murphy Field, everybody who goes to that shopping center drives past this. There's all housing. Anyone going to the residential area goes by. It's really, really heavy traffic right there. And there's a bunch of different things that could go there. And like I said, there's nothing of interest to look at. It's just there, and it's very, very well used. So it would get a lot of attention, a lot of eyeballs on it.
Yeah, that's very true. Thank you. Would you consider that like your priority location when you look at all of them? Or because I since I'm not familiar with you or Kevin's opinion in this forum, we would definitely love to hear from you. And I want you, it's hard to find your footing when you first join the team, but I really think that this would be a great gateway opportunity to like really share your voice and your experience with the sites.
Well, I would just say that the 2 baseball McNear and Murphy have the youngest kids through the oldest people in Petaluma using them frequently, because that's where, Little League, which is obviously so big in Petaluma. So they're really, really, there's traffic there, and there's every age uses those facilities. And I would say, I guess the same thing with the community center. So in my mind, something that, went across the spectrum of people who live here, and, that would be an opportune place to put something, just because it would engage multiple layers of Petaluma, I guess.
Definitely. And I think those spaces could use some artistic flair.
Yes.
Or, something to like kind of anchor them a little bit more outside of their traditional uses. My McNear, I really love the idea of beautifying the ballpark there, but I just have never been clear about when that might be restored or whose project that is right now, because we've had so many people over the years bring it back up. And so that's my only concern with McNair Park, is that it would have to be a holistic approach to working on the site to stabilize and secure.
And it sounded like from Hannah, our other committee member who's from RMPC as well, she's been advocating for that, sounds like, for a number of years with the Parks and Rec department. So I'm not aware of any plans for that site. But obviously, to Melissa's point, we do want to provide a nice canvas for any art that, you know, we are commissioning.
Yes, Kevin?
I just wanted to give my 2 priority spaces. I really like the Golden Concourse walls just because what Member Bellway mentioned, has a lot of opportunity. When I'm walking through it, there's just a lot of graffiti on the walls, and it seems a little out of place with all the other murals that are around that area. I think it would really just tie the whole space together. But my number 1 preference would be the pedestrian overcross of Highway 101. And that's because when you're driving through Petaluma on the interstate, you don't really see Petaluma at all. You kind of see the walls and then you drive past. And I had a former coworker actually ask me if that is our downtown. They're like, oh, doesn't the highway just run through the downtown of Petaluma? I'm like, no, it's a beautiful town. So I think that, I mean, right now it's just kind of a chain link cage that goes over the highway, and there's a lot of opportunity to make it something beautiful that makes someone say, oh, this is Petaluma. And it'd be a landmark to a lot of people in Northern California, or the North Bay, at least.
Thank you, Kevin. For clarification, David, the walls, are we allowed to have murals on them because they're privately owned buildings?
Are we talking about the Golden Concourse?
Yes.
Allowed is a tough word to unravel there. I think the conversation is this one that we've had a few times in my term serving this committee, which is that it's not impossible to do public art on private property. It just, again, the city cannot dictate what private landowners do with their buildings. So if we commission a work and we say, we'd love to have this here for 20 years, and then they sell their building in 2 years and they paint the walls or they take down the sculpture, that's their prerogative and we can't do anything about it. That doesn't mean that public art is not worth doing if it is out of public control. I think there's a lot of jurisdictions in California, outside of California, that have found a lot of value in making, I'm going to use the term ephemeral art that is, sort of like the Magnificent mural that, we're getting so much value out of it right now. There will be a development on that site one day and it will, cover that mural. But are we getting our value out of it? Some would argue yes. Some would argue that we'd want to see that mural up there for 100 years and keep painting it. So I don't think it's an easy question to respond to, but I do think that we have some really nice building owners and property owners in Petaluma, and I think a lot of them would work with this body and would love to see their space beautified by public art. And I think when they see the public responding to the beautification of the site adjacent to them or on their site, I think that is just advocacy on top of that for saying, well, maybe I will keep it. Maybe people are identifying it for wayfinding or for safety or to address blightedness. That I think those are all things in our corner. So that's the best way I can respond to that, I think.
Thank you. Christopher, you had comments?
I think if I had to select a few favorites, I would select the overpass, the pedestrian overpass, and the roundabout at Sonoma Mountain Parkway and Corona Road. And also, I don't think it made it on the list here, but Leghorns Park, because it gets so much. I think there were several sites within that I specified early on in this process, and I think any one of those could become a high-profile presence on the east side. So, notice, I think I'm avoiding most of the sites on the west side simply because I think we continue to owe it. Keep paying it forward or whatever with the sites on the east side.
I had a quick clarification question. Were those the Leghorn Park sites? Were those the ones that you shared with me and Cheryl during the Small Arts Commission? The pictures that you had sent along for us. I just wanted to make sure I have reference to those when I do review for eligibility.
Yeah, I think I sent some early on when actually we were looking at, for Calderon Delgado's work. But then when we took a swing at the small artwork process, however many months ago, 6 months, or whatever, I put them forward then as well, or in more specificity. There's a pedestrian bridge on the sort of the southeast corner of the park that feeds into the junior college. And then there's some open green space along the parkway near the tennis courts. I think, yeah, I can forward the list back to you, but those would be my faves.
Thank you for the reminder.
Cheryl, would you like to add yours?
Yeah, some of the ones that I remember bringing up was the teen center and the senior center. The Murphy Field that Jenny brought up, because it is so highly used and so much traffic goes by there. I mean, even if you're just driving by on McDowell, you're going to see it. And then the open space at Stanley and Western, I know it's small, but it's also an entryway to Petaluma for people coming from the coast, and they go by there. And so I thought that could use a little love and attention. And then I'd also talked about McNear, but understood that
Yeah.
it's just kind of up in the air right now. So I think those were mine.
Thank you, I appreciate it. It seems like we have a lot of overlap and new ideas, so in our past experience, we had opted to buy 2 pieces, because 2 pieces rose to the top, where it was like, wow, okay, we really liked both of them, and at the time, we hadn't committed to so much, and so it was a good thing, because it ended up, one of them happened lightning fast, trying to get these projects to roll out within a time frame where the public has time to digest them, and where we always feel like we're doing something, is nice. But in this opportunity, I just wanted to state that so that they know if you guys went back and looked, you would see that occurred. But this time, I mean, our goal is one site, and then we'll see what happens. I would give priority to the pedestrian overpass. I feel like it's just a space that is so unique. Like when you're driving down the 101, you don't see a lot of pedestrian overpasses. And the site opens up a lot of opportunities, because it could be a gateway, it could be visible from the road, potentially. It could open up to a lot of media, so a lot of different types of artists could apply for the site, which would be really nice. And the site has felt blighted and like not entirely safe, so I feel like something like this could try to kind of encourage usability, which is one of our big goals, is getting people out of cars and connecting and reclaiming human space. I guess that would be the way to put it. The second priority to me at this point would probably be Murphy Field. I know I feel like that area needs a lift. Like you have new housing all through there. You have a lot of people that are walking because of the shopping center. And I feel like it's set up right there for a piece. The Planters has nothing in it, and it's just sitting there. My third choice, if I was to choose one, would probably be, well, I like the roundabouts, but I'm still thinking that we don't know which one we're going to use for Mary. So that's why it's hard for me to think. And
Do you mind if I respond to that really quick too?
Yes, please.
The trickiest part that I've understood about the roundabouts is that until we have dimensions of how the artwork will interact with the driving experience, it's hard to get a green light to do an opportunity there, because we need to address the safety concerns, the vision triangle, and our public works team has to be able to analyze that. So it's easier, for example, with the Mary work that the totem piece that we've identified, because they know the approximate dimensions and they know how that will impact, the driving experience and the pedestrian experience. It's harder to put this out into the sphere and say, present us with art that could be any big, small, wide, narrow, tall, because we wouldn't want to disqualify anybody's design because it doesn't provide safety access. So it makes it tricky for this kind of opportunity. So I'm presenting the Mary work to the Public Works team to both roundabouts to see which one is the safer option. So I don't think that disqualifies the other roundabout, whatever one doesn't work out. But I would just say, in terms of process and how much analysis is going to have to go into this, the roundabouts might not be the best fit for this opportunity.
Okay. And so, yes, Cheryl?
Actually, there was one other one that I forgot about till I looked at my notes, and that was the same one Kevin brought up about the Golden Concourse. I'd remembered that the walls, though, were private, but the stairs. And I remember Melissa and I looking at some photographs of stairs in San Francisco, and gosh, couldn't we do that here? So sorry, but I just didn't want to forget to bring that one up.
Yes, thank you, Cheryl. And so, is there any other discussion, or should we it seems like we have a lot of crossover on the pedestrian footbridge, so that was like a real solid one. I mean, it might be best if we gave our priorities in order, and then we can kind of see, but we're not having to do any action with this item, but I think it would help make our process like, okay, something's complete, and we can kind of move forward. Yes, Christopher?
Yeah, might I suggest that we capture the priorities and David goes back and documents them, and then we can all refresh ourselves, actually go out and visit the sites between now and next meeting.
That's excellent. I did go and walk the Corona Sonoma Mountain Circle to go take shots for the Mary Fuller McChesney pieces. And you might be surprised if you haven't driven it lately how much it's like grown. So there's not a lot of space where there isn't trees or things going on now. It's actually kind of interesting how much you don't have visually to see. And so that was a new thing to me, because last I'd really I'll drive through it and not really consider it for art. And when I actually looked, I was like, where did the circle go? It's been engulfed, which is a good thing, but it's also a thing that kind of takes our sighting ability away, because who wants to cut down a nice tree for art right now?
Yeah, there are 2 trees on that, and this would be the perfect placement for that third leg of the stool on that, a single sculptural element. That's how I've always seen it, or on the outside of the roundabout.
Yeah, so maybe right now, if everybody would like to state their top 2 priorities, and then we can just move forward.
I'm also happy to read back. I've been trying to take notes of and follow. It seems like there's a pretty clear prioritization for the 101 pedestrian overcross. And then it seems like number 2 would probably be close between the Golden Concourse stairs and Murphy Field. I don't know if you would like to slide one in front of the other.
No, I'm fine with keeping
Kevin?
all 3 on there.
After hearing everyone's opinions, I do think the Murphy Fields would be my second priority. Just begging for an art piece there on the corner.
Okay, so I have 101 Murphy Field next, and then Golden Concourse stairs. Do we want to try and are we excluding the walls, or is it not exempt, or?
I think keep it open until we
Okay.
know that somebody said no. I'd like the opportunity to do whatever we can, unless there's objections.
And I don't think there was a clear 4th, because Cheryl mentioned the Stanley Western site.
I mean, I could definitely get behind that. I feel like, because we used to have the wagon right across from it at the creamery, and then that kind of deteriorated and went away. We do have a big fake cow on the roof across the street,
At
which
the
is kind
creamery.
of fun. So it's like that space in the middle it's definitely underutilized. And
I also didn't want to dismiss Christopher's advocacy for Leghorns Park, because it has been on our list a few times, and I don't think there's any public art nearby that park, and it is quite a big park.
yeah, all the public art over there is really at the campus, the junior college, because they have I think now 5 public arts. MJ and Josh are, I think, no, this is in Santa Rosa. They're doing a mural at the new housing. So think it's 4 or 5.
But they do
pieces,
have,
right?
yeah, they do have that MJ and Josh
Yeah.
piece that we went and saw.
And then the large sculpture, I forget the artist, it's like crows on an archway as you enter in the southwest corner. And there's a couple other pieces. I was surprised because I think, school hasn't really been in session. It's been virtual for a while, most of it. And so when I actually went on campus to sell books back, I was like, wow, what happened? Like, it's kind of a quarantine secret. You can go there and everybody's welcome to walk around on campus and take in the art they definitely invested in. So it would be great to have, maybe highlight that on because how we talked about having walks and like opportunities for people to map out the public art in our community, that having something at Leghorn would be awesome to connect to the JC campus. So yeah, it sounds like we have like 4 solids there to work with, and maybe we can call for a formal vote on the next one, because our missing members can weigh in, and that, we can, because now we've heard everybody's opinions and we knew theirs in the past, so I think taking action at our next meeting will be really useful. And I think next meeting we should also talk about timeline, because I'd like to get that in motion, so we always have something rolling out.
Yeah, I guess on that note too, just to clarify for everybody, the attachment on this item was it's essentially the same RFP that we've put together, that's been improved upon every cycle that we've done, and it is, as by design, it's pretty much a boilerplate ready to go. It just needs a location to dial a few other details in, and then it's ready for publish. Of course, with the approval from the committee first, but there's always room to improve the language and the process. So if anybody does have comments, we can talk about that now about the actual document, or we can talk about them online or offline. There's no rush, obviously. So I have a pretty good idea of how I'm going to try to talk to different departments and authorities to see if I can get any preemptive go ahead on these sites and which ones would be the most viable, and continue my conversation with Caltrans.
Thank you, David. Christopher?
Yeah, so while it's up to the committee's discretion to set this in motion whenever it chooses to, what would you think if we selected a site next meeting? Maybe if, say it's one of the tougher ones to vet, maybe the overpass, what would you say a timeline would be for being able to rewrite the RFP and release it?
It's hard to say. I think that the first thing that comes to mind to try and get answers quickest about what the eligibility is to go to the design review committee, which is an internal meeting that the city does that between fire, public works, planning, building, to kind of give preliminary feedback about sites. But I think it would require a deeper dig in to say, all right, we're looking at this corner of Leghorns Park. What utilities are here? What kind of overhead utilities are here? What's the public easement acts? What are the easements there? So there's a few layers that we have to strip back to say, like, all right, this is a viable site. I think the best guess I could give you is that I'm pretty confident, but if this committee decided at the next meeting which sites to go ahead with, I could probably by the end of the calendar year get answers about where we're headed, and then we could release probably in January and get the call for artists going in January.
If there was any way, like, I was thinking about how we won't likely have a meeting in December. We typically don't. There's a little lull towards the end of the year, which is nice. That if this was available to do, like, if we just narrowed it to 2 sites, that would make your process a lot easier than having 4 sites, right? As far as researching.
Yeah, I mean,
that?
we're already starting with the pedestrian overcross one, so I mean, it's kind of just 3 sites, I guess. Well,
Okay.
if we want to, I'm a little unclear about the 4th one. Are we putting Leghorns Park there?
I think I don't know how you feel about it, Christopher.
I think it would be great, but since I'm the only one who spoke up on it, I appreciate you sort of somehow getting it on there. Why don't people go look at it along with the other sites and see if it warrants
Okay.
being included for consideration?
I would be shocked if I inquired about it and they said absolutely no public
Yeah.
art anywhere on that site. So I'm sure there is a site, a particular specific site within the park that they would love to have public art. It's just figuring out which one it is.
Okay, Cheryl, you had your hand
I
raised?
just wanted to clarify, is the pedestrian bridge the one they call Mackenzie Avenue? Which?
I think that Mackenzie is the street on the east side that it connects to.
Okay.
Don't quote me on
I
that. I can look it up.
online
It
after
lands
the
right
last
at like
meeting.
Yogurt Land, or
And I
not
just-
Yogurt Land, but whatever that yogurt, is it? Okay, yeah, it lands right there.
Okay, because I looked up and I just pulled it back up and I found a city council meeting from August of 2022, and it was talking about the pedestrian and bicycle overpass over Highway 21, and they were talking about Mackenzie, Corona Road and Mackenzie. I just wanted to know, am I thinking of the same one you guys are
It's the
thinking of?
101, and I don't know of Corona Road. and-
I think Corona is it's the east-west. It's not directly east-west, but you know what I mean. And then I think Mackenzie is the road that goes north. I actually think I pulled it up here. So this is, if you look on your screens, it's this. So Stewart Drive in Mackenzie this is where it lets out, and this is the entrance there.
Okay, so it's the same one. I just wanted to make sure.
I think you're right. Let me
There was
here's where the
another one I wasn't
map
thinking.
goes. So there's the exit for Washington, and this is Stewart Drive here. Mackenzie is this one. It might not be the same Mackenzie now that I think about it, because this connects with McDowell, and McDowell and Corona obviously are, they intersect. But yeah, I hope that clarifies.
Part of our past conversation with that also was that we're doing this big project at Kenilworth Park, and we want people to get across these places, like vast parking lots, and also that space, that walkway is identified as a class 1 walk, or class 1 walkway and bikeway. So we're hoping that from there, the plan with pedestrian bike advisories, that would connect with like Madison and those. I think there and Payran have the higher class lanes that are slightly safer. And so in my thinking, we could help support the connectivity through the sites by starting it out that way. Yeah.
Yeah, and like other projects too, I feel like public arts effort could help catalyze other investments into that site. And I know that they've, like you're saying, it's an identified area that they want to see more pedestrians and bikes moving through that space, alternative to cars. So maybe this will help get the ball rolling.
I should have clarified in my timeline comment about us missing meetings towards the end of the year. I was kind of thinking that might be a good time for applications to come in or something, so something was happening. But if you think that's just, because I thought that might give an opportunity for it to be open longer. But we have a lot going on too, because that's probably when Kenilworth's going to start coming to a head in January, February.
I just worry a little bit about getting responses back from city employees and everything, and and Caltrans for that matter too. I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus, but I'm not confident that I could get answers quick enough. But to your point, I think there's also some public art funds that should be coming through later in this fiscal year, so that would help not make the public art fund look as depleted. So it'd be nice to be able to see investment, but also be confident that there's still money in the bank.
Understood, thank you. Okay, are there any additional comments or anything you would like, obviously, we're moving that item forward for next meeting, so if there's something additionally that you saw that should be part of that conversation and be on the agenda, this is a good time to share it. Okay, then we will open public comment. Anybody from the public would like to comment on this item? Seeing as there are none, we will move on to to committee comments. So if any committee members would like to provide updates, we will now hear from our ad hoc subcommittees for Fine Balance. Christopher, do you have anything of note? I have not been in contact with Brian, but it was made known to us that his application was complete and submitted, so we're pending his approval. We'll move on to next.
Yeah, I guess the snapshot I can give you right now is that there's a review period that the city has to provide comments back to Brian on his building permit application, which has been resubmitted earlier this month. So we should be hearing back from planning, building, fire, public works, everybody who reviews it, probably sometime early next month. So that's about all I have. I haven't been in contact with Brian over the last 2 weeks, so I haven't heard much. And I think that's about it. I think his original installation was looking to get started in late September, which it's now late September. But so I think there are some delays that aren't necessarily Brian's fault. There's just going through the building permit process is sometimes a little bit more complicated. So.
In that next conversation with Brian, pending the city's comments, could part of the conversation be possible dates for a site visit so that we can do a studio visit and just get, priority to us had been to get new committee members updated on the project because it has at times had a big public response and we want everyone to feel prepared to have an answer for that situation should it arise and to get familiar with the artist and the project in general. So
yeah, I think Brian would be on board with that too. I don't want to speak for him, but that will be, he'll be going into the final phases of fabrication too. So it might be a good time to see things in progress and have tangible things to look at. And again, I don't want to promise anything for Brian, but I think it's within the realm of reason because we've talked about it in the past.
Thank you. Christopher?
Yeah, would you be able to let the subcommittee know as soon as you get word on the building permit application?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, Woven Stories, subcommittee members Cold Iron and Smith, if you have a report on the status.
I don't have anything, but I was hoping David would.
I spoke with Rudy. So also just, I guess to clarify, I didn't communicate this to the subcommittee, but it sounds like Roberto Delgado, who's the tile worker, has, I don't want to diminish his value in this project. He designed all the tile and did research to figure out what the inlay tile was going to be. He has completed what his portion of the project is. I haven't seen pictures of it assembled, so I want to reach out to him, but it sounds like Rudy is going to be taking the project through the rest of the final phases. I gave him information earlier this month about the permit application process with the city, so he understands what that process is, and he asked for support from the school district about if they had a preferred contractor to help with his installation. I haven't heard back from the district yet, but I told him that he would have to supply the adequate contractor's license to do that work, supposing that the district doesn't support us. So the more information I know, I'll share that. But we should be pulling those applications no later than by the end of October if he wants to hit the Thanksgiving deadline, or he would move it to the late December, early January period that he was also, since we're installing at a school, he'd like to try and install when the kids aren't in school. So just to not to disrupt programming. So.
I mean, if the timing's right, it would be really nice to have a public unveiling at the site. I feel like it could definitely feel like a gift to the community over the holidays, and just kind of a great way to start the new year.
And because it could be happening at the holidays, I want to make sure we have adequate notification. I don't think a 1 week notification at that time would be enough, you know. A month or two would be great. I don't know that we'll get that either.
Thank you. And so as I see no further comments on that, we will move on to Kenilworth Playground. Kevin, Ann, and I are on the subcommittee. Kevin, would you like to share an update?
Sure, please fill in any gaps that I miss. But we met with Oleg a few weeks ago and got his proposal and gave back comments. And later on, Ann Diggs sparked a conversation about our concerns and some of the clashes that we saw between what MIG's plans were for the parks and what Oleg's installations were going to be. So yesterday morning, we had a call with the subcommittee and just got our thoughts together and sent those to Oleg before the meeting with MIG and some other city teams, I believe. I can't cite them correctly.
Yeah, it was the Parks and Rec team and the Public Works team that have been managing it from the city side.
Great, thank you. We gave Oleg we repeated our concerns to Oleg and the team. They let us know that there's going to be an online survey coming for the community. So they're going to incorporate some of those comments from the community back into the plan. And Oleg did say his vision is still open, so his installations can be vertical, horizontal, etc. And he's still in a formative spot. So at least from my perspective, it's still trucking along. The concept is evolving appropriately, and I think our comments were heard by everyone who needed to hear them. As for next steps, I can't recall those correctly.
Yeah, the next steps are the survey and siting with MIG, because there were some potential sites. The sites that they're including right now are kind of entry sites. So the focus of the park, we did get to see MIG's plans, which were mind-blowing. Like, I did not expect to see so much change at the site. I'm not even sure how it's feasible because it looks that amazing. The focus of the site is water. It's a hydrology theme. And so the siting for Oleg would be near the teen center, which is considered an entrance point, a focal point. They want the teen center to kind of be enhanced all around it. And then also potentially at the corner of Payran, and Oleg himself proposed a riverbank option. So I believe the plans were going to be released, is it this Thursday or next Thursday?
Yeah, it's October 2nd. So the survey that Kevin was referring to is the MIG's design survey, where they're going to release that 30% schematic design of the redesign of the park, and then it also includes Oleg's preliminary ideas about this project, responding to a proposal for this project, and it'll run until November 2nd. So they'll be doing pop-up events around the city, including at the movies in the park, the various what am I trying to call them? Farmers markets. There we go. Word just slipped my mind. And other events too. So they're going to be presenting that. They told me to hold off. I have the plans, an earlier version of the plan set, but they told me to hold off until they're ready to release those next week. So I unfortunately can't share those. But yeah, I think if I could speak for Oleg too, that his design, the corners that Kevin was referring to, those entrance points by Kenilworth Teen Center, and then directly down, if you follow Fairgrounds onto the corner of where Payran meets that Fairgrounds connector, would be like these new entry, these new design entry points. But we're also talking about making several other smaller sculptures that connect them throughout the play areas. And Oleg has expressed that he would like the traditional play elements, swings, slides, things like that, be not completely separate, but be a distinction between those are swings, those are slides, those are play mounds, and then close nearby his interactive art pieces that will be climbable, play safe, of course. That was a huge component of this, but I also just wanted to add to that all three subcommittee members were pretty on board with giving feedback to Oleg that we would really like to see an immersive experience, play experience, but also an impactful experience for all, for families, for teens, for adults as well, that get inspired with that sense of a purely unique and whimsical nature of the design that he comes up with. So not to say he didn't hit that mark, but a further and deeper exploration into that would meet the goal even further. So I thought that was a big sticking point that at least stuck with me.
To piggyback on that a little bit, so Oleg had shown his series of maquettes from his series. What was it? It's a Substance and Form?
Yeah, I can show those if you would like me to.
Because that was what he drew from, and we pointed out that our initial call for this was largely influenced by the La Brea pieces he did, which were like a deconstructed saber-toothed tiger skeleton. So it really like fit the scenery and the story and history of that site. And so it came up in our committee discussions that we just were not sure that these pieces that looked a lot like coral really tied to a regional story about water use in Petaluma specifically, or the site specifically. It kind of read more aquatic and reef. And we thought that it might be the time to do a more representational piece since it is in a park. But we gave him the option of tying it together. We just needed that water sense to be more pervasive in the piece. And we said it could be in the usability, it could be in a lot of ways.
Sorry, Melissa, I didn't mean to cut you off.
That's okay.
His working title is Evaporation, and he's planning on he would like to use GFRC, glass fiber reinforced concrete. The groupings of sculptures would be between 3 to 12 feet high or 3 to 8 feet wide at their largest. And again, we talked about having scalable pieces, so some that would be closer to the 2 to 5 play range. So if they fell from the highest portion, it would be a safe distance, and for the older kids and could take a more calculated risk. And the forms that he's looking at are these. So we do understand that some of these are stainless steel, and this is more of that GRFC material. So it's texturized. It's a sand polish, I believe, which allows you to grip it. So it's not, when it gets wet, it's just like marble, but it's not a rough surface either. It's somewhere calculated in between. These are some more of the forms that he has experimented with in the past. And again, these are not the forms he will be putting in the park. They're just the series that has been exploring, and he would like to. This is what first came to mind, and I think he's thinking about water at a maybe more molecular level, and maybe in more of like in its fluidity and its motion. And so I'm kind of butchering Oleg's presentation, but I wanted to make sure that everybody kind of understood what we're talking about here.
The only other item that came up was just how everybody might use it and how it connects to this play space. Because in our initial approach at doing this partnership, we didn't know that the parks were going to do play structures. It seemed like this might have to check both boxes, and we weren't sure how that investment from both sides would play out and what it would look like. And we still don't really know. We just have an idea of what our budget might be spent on this, which would not be a budget that would support a large play structure art piece. So when MIG did their presentation, they did point out play areas that would include like a structure. And they did offer the idea that some of these structures might be, we didn't ever see anything that was a traditional piece that you would see at a current park in Petaluma. So they're looking at wholly different styles of play structure, which was exciting. We just wanted to really specify that we want there to be connection between the pieces they present and what we have from Oleg. Oleg has also identified a color palette that he would like to stick within white as far as these are concerned. And so we wanted to make sure that that it was still something that really caught kids' attention and the public's attention. Like that was, we had a week or so to digest it before we came to those conclusions, and he was receptive, but he also asked for some time for consideration in his response. And he has not entered the design phase yet, and he made that clear. And I'm not sure if David, he did say in our meeting that he had not been paid yet, and so I
Yeah.
wanted to know if there was an update on that.
Yeah, I did want to address that too, because I wanted to acknowledge that that was, we've been working through the PSA. It's a pretty standard services agreement to hire him as a contractor, and I appreciate that he was willing to attend meetings and hit the ground running even before we had the final signatures. I'm not going to point any fingers at all, because that's not what we're here to do, but I'm pretty disappointed in the response from the city about getting this prioritized and getting our artists paid, because I think a personal motivation about why I took this job is because I champion paying artists a fair wage, and it really disappoints me to hear that there was a lag and that Oleg has been working for free for 3 months, and that really saddens me. And I made sure that I stayed solution oriented, and the check has been written and has been sent in the mail. I got confirmation this morning. So I am working to remedy that doesn't happen again. And I'd like a direct deposit system set up with Oleg so there is no hiccups in his payment, because just like him, I wouldn't want to work for free either, because his work is very valuable and he's doing a really excellent job. So if Oleg is watching this and at home or in the future, I just want him to know that he is very valued, and that we're going to work. I'm going to take every opportunity to make sure that doesn't happen again, because I was really disappointed to hear that.
Thank you for your response and your action on that. It was hard. I second everything you said. That it was an unfortunate conversation with the artist, because he made it clear that he would not continue working until he's paid, and that it comes at a price to him personally. And so that was really hard to hear, and I'm so grateful for your action, because that one was hard to take. It was pretty cringy, to say the least. And so those are the updates for the site. If you guys have any questions about that, was just a lot of action in the last week, essentially. So, Christopher?
Yeah, well, thank you for that. That's a big update from a lot of people on a single project. But I'm glad it happened, because a lot was revealed there that I think needed to be fully disclosed. And I think we probably even need to go further than this. And maybe even in advance next time, be more proactive in some of the updates. Because I've heard that this, before I spoke with a subcommittee member and understood that there was an issue with, that the artist was getting feedback. I learned that my understanding of this project was different than what was actually going down. And I understood that we were commissioning collectively with Recreation, Music, and Parks to have the play space, the play environment. The whole environment within the park was going to be it was going to be created by this artist. And as it turns out, this is sort of a complement, or it may end up being a featured element, but I think it's helpful for all of us to understand that it's not the primary element here, and that there are more. It seems like there are more space. There, the swings and the slides and whatever else that are part of it, and that's great. But I think as we go, I think it's useful for us to know that. And then also, when Kevin was suggesting that the artist got feedback from the subcommittee, I think that feedback needs to be shared with this committee specifically, always. So this committee can critique the feedback that's being given to the artist. So we're all on board with it, or at least we've had a discussion about it and we can vote on it if need be. Because previously this committee some subcommittees have taken it upon themselves to influence projects at critical stages, and we've had to deal with it one way or another. So I think it's just good practice to be able to figure out how to get a process down where we're all at least aware of the feedback or the dialogue that's going on between committee members and artists.
If I can respond to that too, I think you bring up a lot of really great points, and I actually want to be very careful to not miss any of them because you raised a couple of good ones. The first being that the design of this project is not going to, this is not an art park, that is just riddled with sculpture, right? I think we're talking about two different weight classes here. The public art investment into the site is going to be a substantial one, as this committee has, kind of gotten on board with that. And I think we're one of the biggest stakeholders for this project, which is incredible. And I think that is nothing to scoff at, but I think the design that MIG is putting forward and that that Parks and Rec and Public Works is looking, we're talking about millions of dollars here. So it's going to be a huge lift, and we are flying on the same wing of this project. And I don't think we need to belittle ourselves in that. I think art is a very important component of this park. And on top of that, we're redefining how public art is received in the city to have a new user experience and make it safe, make it climbable, invite people to have that really memorable experience that is really unique, and we have never offered that in the city before. So I think that we should all be really proud that we're kind of, we're in new territory, a new frontier. The second point that you were talking about too, about sharing out information from the subcommittee, is really important. And I know what projects you're talking about, because I think a lot of our projects have been really guided by subcommittees, and sometimes they get close to the project's intent and goal, and sometimes they do veer a little bit. So the subcommittee for Kenilworth did discuss, or maybe it was just me and Melissa. I'm sorry, I'm just forgetting. Between the last week we had a lot of meetings, a lot of phone calls, but we did float the idea of bringing Oleg to the next meeting to share what his next development is. I'm not going to push that, but if the committee does see value in that, he lives in East Palo Alto, and he has, part of his contract is that he has to participate in some of these in-person meetings. So we could definitely have him here, respond to questions, and show us the next stage of development. I hope that would work with this timeline. I also want to be sensitive and respectful to the latest development I'm referring to the payment stuff. But hopefully the timeline still allows him to develop his design from the preliminary stage to something a little bit more that responds to the subcommittee's feedback. So we can have him in October. We can have him in November if we have a meeting in November as well. It is also a valuable time to share with you that it sounds like the project timeline is tracking a little bit further behind. So MIG is now looking to no longer have a joint session from RMPC and PPAC in October, which was originally going to be October 18th, yes, which is the normal third Wednesday that RMPC typically meets here in council chambers. This would be pushed back one full month. So it would be November 18th. Hold on, I can see this. November 15th, Wednesday, November 15th. So that's the new date we're looking at. And just for the new committee members, this is it's a joint session of both Recreation, Music and Parks and Public Art coming together at one meeting where we'll all be here in council chambers to talk about this item because it is a mutual investment. So it's a time for us all to come together and bounce ideas off of one another before it gets much further along in its design development. So,
And I'm not sure when we need to bring it up, but we got to talk about our November meeting.
Yeah, that's something I'm going to have to work with Uriel offline about, because what Cheryl's referring to is that the fourth Thursday of November and the fourth Thursday of December typically have a pretty hard time getting a scheduled date because of the holidays. So we typically do one meeting between the 2 months that's either late November, mid-November, or early December. So we have to do it on a date that doesn't have any other Historic and Cultural Committee, Planning Commission. So we have to find an empty date to be here. So I'll have more news on that soon. Hopefully I can just email you all and update with you with a date or two that we can pick from. But yeah.
Christopher, I wanted to respond to your comment and let you know that the reason we had the meeting with Oleg, which was scheduled, and that's where he presented his loose guidelines or loose details of what he was thinking, although he had not designed it all. And he presented, it got kind of cut short where we couldn't give him a lot of feedback at that time, and I think everybody needed to sit with it. And then we had this scheduled meeting that was moved 3 times. And so we were kind of at the seat of our pants. Like, as we're entering in it, it was like everything was very loose, and it was really unfortunate. And then when we finally did get our meeting scheduled, Anne brought up the email with her concerns the day before, and that was when we kind of found out that everybody was feeling the same way. At the initial meeting with Oleg, I did question whether we could handle a less than representational piece there when it's engaging kids, but it didn't seem like we really had any kind of robust conversation about it. So once we had time to sit with it, it was like, okay, we're about to enter this joint session with Oleg, and we all seem on a completely different page than Oleg. So quickly, we kind of went back to what we had originally discussed in our quest for an artist and the feedback we had given in selecting him, like what attributes or things we were looking to get out of this park. And so that was why we kind of had to do something quickly, just so Oleg didn't get caught off guard with the direction of our questions. As close as it was, it already felt uncomfortable to do that. And so I know it's not an excuse, and I don't want to make an excuse, but in this situation, it was kind of by the seat of your pants representing the commission. And so it was really unfortunate, and I wouldn't typically like to do that. So I would ask David, he shared the email compiling our thoughts, and they were provided to Oleg, and then I read them at the meeting. So we didn't really go off script from those collected thoughts. And so if David's comfortable, if he would share them with the committee after this, and they can be in the public record, we're fine with that, since we really want to make sure that we are
Yeah,
public with
I
our
can
conversations at this point, especially pre-design phase.
I can forward that to the committee, and so everybody's aware of what the feedback was.
Yeah, well, thank you for explaining all that. I think my comment was using this as an example of where we need to be extra careful about making sure that everyone is informed, that everyone's somehow involved in the discussion. And in this case, the timeline for this has always been sort of aggressive, and us meeting once a month makes it very difficult to dialogue in between. And I think each subcommittee has to have some sort of sense of authority, at least, to have those conversations. Somehow we have to have a mechanism for them getting back to the rest. So, and I think we've done that here. So I want to acknowledge that. Thanks.
Yeah, this is definitely the most lively subcommittee report we've had in a long time. So I'm glad we're taking advantage of this opportunity. And I really appreciate you asking those questions. I think it's key for how we move forward. And we definitely want to make sure this represents the committee and not 3 people as part of the committee. Are there any additional project follow-ups that anybody has?
I have a couple in the committee, or in the staff comment in the next item, but I also wanted to make sure that, as you always say, this is a great time for the committee to generally share other things happening in public art. And it's also, if any committee members are ever interested in presenting on a public art topic, it doesn't need to be in Petaluma or California, or it could even be adjacent to public art. But if there's value to educating and always growing what our growing perspective and attitude is towards public art, I think it's valuable for this committee to hear. So we typically have presentations and things like that, and this is a good time to do that. So just a friendly reminder.
Christopher, I know you've attended a couple of events that Public Art Committee members were invited to. Would you like to speak about the Veterans Art event or anything like that?
I was not in town for the Veterans event.
Okay.
I did attend the Better Cities Film Festival, though, and it's unfortunate that right now the other showing of that is happening across town, and I'm not sure if any other committee members made it, but yeah, I'm not sure how to summarize that other than that it was a there was a committee from Petaluma Urban Chat, I believe, in conjunction with some other citizens who selected from a huge variety of film shorts, things that would somehow make for sort of a better urban environment. And there were 10 or 12 films. And the cool thing was there were several of them that were very public art centric. And then there were some that really dealt with some of the public art related ones were like public art and public works together, like street painting and stuff for traffic calming. And so really along the lines of what we will be doing here. So I'm not sure if there's a list of those that we can go out and watch on our own, but if anyone's interested, I can do some research and find out.
Thank you, Christopher. I was able to attend the first night of the Bolinas Film Festival that opened. It's a series of short films that's hopefully going to return next year, and it was a really great opportunity to see what Bolinas had to offer, and so we'll keep that on our radar for next year. It was a last-minute invitation, and it was really cool to see that was happening. I was excited to get an invitation, but I couldn't attend. SLU City Studios opened that's behind Clavey on Petaluma Boulevard, and it's artist working studios with classes and all kinds. There's some former Art Start members who are there, and it just looks like a lot's happening. So it's really cool to have this space. They just had their grand opening, and I'm not sure the hours they're open, but it's another active artist space that's near the Watershed Project where there's studios and where we're placing Fine Balance. So it's adding to that arts district kind of feel down there. And then my last comment would be I'm putting on a craft show. I used to run the Petaluma Crafterino craft show, and it's been done. It hasn't happened since COVID, since 2019, and we had a lot of requests from artists and from the public to bring it back. And so it will be taking place November 12th, and we've added a youth booth that highlights local youth artists. And we actually have some fine artists that are attending in addition to craftspersons. So it's pretty cool. We're trying to adjust it to the times and the climate of our city and where people's direction in the creative arts is leading. Yes, Cheryl.
I was able to go to the Veterans Art pop-up at Life on Earth. So they had a lot of veterans there. Actually, my husband is a veteran, and so they really seemed to enjoy, especially chatting with him, and some of them shared some of their experiences. Lots of different art, mostly paintings. There was a woman there who did ceramic, and I picked up a couple of her pieces. So it was nice.
Thank you, Cheryl. Jenny, did you have a comment?
I was actually going to speak about the veterans event too. I couldn't make it. However, my grandparents and my father are veterans, and my grandmother actually taught art therapy to veterans. So and I've been in conversation with the gentleman who had invited us, and he's asked me to come this month, mostly to bring more attention to the whole organization. And so I can definitely report back, next meeting because I think it's a great organization. I don't know a lot about them, and I don't think most people in town do, but it's definitely a good addition.
Yeah, definitely. It was news to me, and so that was great. And also wanted to clarify when David was talking about bringing your own presentation. It's as simple as your vacation photos highlighting artists in other areas. It's you seeing something that would inspire artists and the public, because we do view part of our public art job is to help provide public art education to, if somebody's watching this, which I hope they are, that it would open eyes to new areas near us or afar that are doing it right. So yeah, we appreciate that. And so now we will, if there's no other shares, we will go on.
I have just one.
Yes, please.
It's a thought that came to me about the Small Artwork Commission. If we did go with the overpass, that would actually kind of beautify the de facto bike route from the east side that goes down through Kenilworth. So that would just kind of make it a cool little art tour. And then also last meeting, I did promise you guys a presentation about Burning Man art. It's not here. It's been just swamped at work, but next month it's going to be refined. It's going to be beautiful and very exciting.
It's exciting. Thank you, Kevin. And so we will close this item and move on to staff comment and updates.
Yeah, before I forget, I wanted to make sure I made a plug for our wonderful friends MJ and Josh Lindo Lawyer, who are Rough Edge Collective. They painted the mural at the swim center. They have this really wonderful nonprofit 501c3 called the Mural Project, which brings a lot of it just beautifies. I know it's Santa Rosa, but they do this every year, every October, so it's coming up next month. These are some of the artists that are confirmed for the 2023 project, and last year I think they painted a dozen murals in a month. It's wild, and I love they do so much with so little. I adore and support both of them so much. They're independent projects, they're projects together. We've even talked about bringing the mural project to Petaluma, and I still think that's a fabulous idea if that could happen. But just wanted to make sure I made a plug for them because they're doing incredible things out there. On the public art projects status matrix, I'm happy to take any questions. The ones that I'm going to call, again, I'm not going to go through all of these, and I don't have updates for all of them aside from what it kind of states on here already. But I did want to say that I have a meeting with Spring Maxfield tomorrow regarding the installation of the selected Mary Works. She has a great installation team. She also was behind the curation and the installation at the Astro Motel of Mary's works. So I think she'd be an excellent project lead on that, and I'd love to contract with her because she knows that collection so well and how to handle it, how to install it, how we can affix those sculptures for permanent public display. So I wanted to let you know that there's progress on that front, and I'm hoping that at the next meeting I'll have an exciting update about an installation plan. I also wanted to point out at the next meeting that we have, we're inviting Drake Cunningham to come talk to us about Listening Builds Community, which, if you remember, is our community art grant that was awarded to them. Their final artist is scheduled for October. And I know there was a little bit of confusion with their stage and some of the performance elements, and there was a lot of head scratching because the city couldn't respond well to all the things that they wanted in that space. So they have been able to exhibit a few artists, and I'm sad that I haven't been in front of it to put that in front of this committee. They have a website that has been periodically updated. But anyway, Drake's going to come present and do a final report out to this committee, and what that would satisfy them to receiving the other half of their grant. So I just wanted to make sure that was on the table. Oh.
I should have plugged that there's an artist that's connected adjacent to that project.
Is that Becky's?
Yeah, Becky White is going to be doing an installation performance, video performance with music that she's created. I've gotten to see part of it, and that'll be Saturday, October 20th?
20th or 21st. 21st.
21st, okay, thank you for the clarification, but that'll be in the evening, and I know I might try to look for the exact details while you're giving the continuing
And
report.
for those who don't know, this is in Helen Putnam Plaza, and that was where their project was aimed to make an impact and transform the space for temporary public art to be displayed. So,
Can I ask a question?
sure.
Yes, please.
So does that mean that with this artist performing on October 20th, the project will have been done? So
Effectively, yeah. I mean, the guidelines for the community art grant are pretty loose to the interpretation, but this is their final scheduled artist, and they have been showing artists sprinkled throughout the summer. So they didn't get the chance, the city never responded to their building permit for the stage, so they weren't able to have performance artists. So they didn't get to complete their full scope of work, but they did get to exhibit artists as they set out to in their original mission.
I'm curious to what extent committee members knew about this. I mean, I walk by there and I see some of the compact discs and things like that, but I wasn't aware that there were other component parts of this that were that were being substituted for what we understood the commission to originally be.
I don't think we received a hard list of these artists will be from these dates. We never did receive that part from them. So it was hard. And yeah, I would periodically I'd go through and say, oh, that's an installation, and then check the website and see, oh, there's a little bit of information about the artist.
So it's safe to say then that the stage and everything that was going to be on top of the raised grass portion, and then the doors and stuff that were going to be on the walls, and the listening booths or whatever, all that none of that is going to happen, has happened, or will happen for this. It's other artistic expressions.
I can't confidently speak to that, and I wasn't regularly monitoring the site, but I mean, Drake might be able to share.
Okay.
But we can send any feedback ahead of that meeting if we do have thoughts that we'd like to share with them.
I mean, I did attend one early on that was like a story time that I read at as a volunteer, and that had some community conversations taking adjacent. And I did attend several meetings about where they were asking the public about the use of the space. And I know they had a volunteer intern who came and like helped work on it extensively, but I never saw where it led to. Becky had a Creative Sonoma grant, so she was going to be doing this, and she was, I know, going to be using the stage, but it didn't happen. But for clarification, I see it's October 21st in Helen Putnam Plaza. It's going to be it's called Becoming and Remembering. It's a multimedia experience, and it's from 7 to 9, and there will be food trucks, and it's free, and all are welcome. But I would like clarification, if this can happen, if there were, if the project was relying on partnerships and funding from other organizations, or if the funding from us was exclusive to the site, just so we get a sense of all funds for the project and where the performance is part of a partnership or part of their organized objectives specific to our grant.
Right, and I think there was somewhere around 15,000 of their own money or
Yeah.
outside secured money that they were going to use in conjunction with the grant provided from Public Art. So you all are, well, the ones of you that were here during that, when that was approved, have seen that, but I can also bring that back in front of the committee.
Also, just to tell what the cost was of the original community art grants so that other members will know what we're funding and what that looked like. Could you just tell them, like in that cycle, how many we funded and for what amounts?
Sure, it was, I think in total, the community art grant provided 21,000 and some change to 3 separate grants. One of them is this Listening Builds Community Project, which was $10,000. The other one was for the Magnificent Mural Community Engagement and to help facilitate their operational cost, which was $6,000, and then the remaining $5,500 for $5,000 was for the bus shelters murals, which the other update on that is that the plexi that they used was on back order, so it's been waiting to get installed. The remaining pieces, it sounds like the murals are painted onto the plexi. They're just waiting for installation. So it's been a hurry up and wait kind of process throughout the summer. And every time I come, I know there's a public art meeting coming, I say, hey, can I provide them with an update? And sadly, there's not an update. So we're just waiting for that installation.
Excellent, thank you. Are there any other questions about those projects? Okay.
I had a few other updates too, which one is that the Petaluma Arts Center is going to be having Voices of the Community and BAVC Media's 7-part series about arts and culture. And they actually invited me to be a panelist for them. This is on November 4th from 1 to 4 p.m. And I don't know if I could participate, so we'll see. Maybe I'll have to send Melissa or some if anybody wants to volunteer. I'm sure they'd love to have someone from Public Art. And then I think the only other things I had were that you'll be looking at a Q1 budget report at the next hearing as well. And I think I think that gets everything unless anybody had questions about particular projects that they'd like me to highlight.
Does anyone have any additional comments, questions for David? Okay, then we will close this item and we will adjourn this evening's meeting. It's so nice to have more members and have a fuller house. Like for the first time in ages, we have a full commission, so this is pretty exciting. Thank you. Hope we didn't scare you off. Have a great night.